Welcome to the Superfast Instagram Q&A. Today we are talking about what music means and what it means to be a musician. Let's get started. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Superfast Instagram Q&A. When can I use a major 7 sharp 5 chord? Whenever you want. Ooh. That chord has such a vibe, especially when played like that in the upper register of the piano. It's like, ooh, we're going through space. Look, the moons of Jupiter. Now, some people use this chord as like a reharmonization for the 1 major 7 chord. Like instead of 1 major 7, you use 1 major 7 sharp 5 because it seems like a little bit more mysterious. It has this ethereal quality to it. If you end it on the end of your jazz arrangement, of your fancy jazz ballad. You can kind of think of a C major 7 sharp 5 as like an E triad on top of a C. And because of that, you can sometimes see the sonority, geez, that's hard to say. Thank God for de-essers. Sometimes see the sonority in a more classical setting. So for example, if you had this bass line in the key of A minor, which went C, B, A. A typical way you might harmonize that in the right hand is with an A minor chord on the C. So that's an A minor over C, it's the root chord. Then you have E over B, which is like the 5 chord in the key, which then resolves to A minor, like so. One way of spicing up this harmony is not starting on the A minor, but instead starting on the E triad, the 5 chord, like starting on the 5 chord on top of the C, the 3rd of the key. And that creates this really nice kind of descending bass line thing. I mean, like, what? It's so good.
So good.
So yeah, you can kind of think of this chord as the 5 on top of the minor 3rd of whatever key you're in, and it sounds really nice when you voice lead it. What are your thoughts on the phrase, music isn't like how it used to be, or newer music is worse? So a change to a new type of music is something to be aware of as a hazard to all of our fortunes. Is something that Plato said in the Republic, 380 BC. People have been talking about the kids these days with their newfangled music for literally thousands of years, and have been framing it as kind of like a moral question since then too.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
We are a product of our culture, and music is a reflection of the culture. And if you don't see yourself in the culture, you feel like something fundamentally is wrong. And that's always going to happen as time marches forward. The previous generation is not going to be able to see themselves reflected back in the culture. And so damn kids these days with their TikToks and their hyperpops and their 100 gecs is really just somebody saying, I don't know who I am anymore. Least favorite time signature. Never really cared for 6/8. Why does Stevie Wonder like 13 flat 9 chords so much? It kind of sounds like the setup to a problematic joke. But I kind of think of this 13 flat 9 chord as like a warm embrace, a hug, especially if you resolve it down to a 1 chord. If you think about C13 flat 9 as the 5 in the key of F major, it has both the major 3rd from F major, that A natural, but it also has a D flat, which has this dark, mysterious, minor-y quality to it. It's from F minor. So you got these 2 elements from the key that it's pointed to. You got the major A and the minor D flat. And that minor-major duality just is so expressive when you resolve it eventually to the tonic 1 chord. Do certain keys have better bass? I know some notes seem bassier than others. So yeah, if you're making any kind of electronic music, you'll find that the keys of F, F sharp, G, and A flat usually work the best for you because those keys hit the hardest in the subs of PA systems. Low G is about 50 hertz, which is at like the low end of what a lot of subsystems are designed to pump out at the highest volume. If you're to play in a different key, like in the key of, I don't know, C for example, the low C is way too low for subs to be able to recreate, and the high C just doesn't hit as hard. So you have to like be very conscious of what key you're picking and the chord progressions that you're picking if you're playing loud electronic music with sub bass. Some people will tell you that the key that you pick doesn't matter because an equal temperament, they're all essentially the same. But in this case, we're talking about frequency response. And in that case, yes, the key definitely matters. Bass matters, everybody. Stand up for bass. Bass. Do you have a favorite music educator? Victor Wooten, hands down. I love his bass playing and I love his approach to music, his ideas around music as a language and language learning and music learning. Very influential on me and what I do here on my YouTube channel. Why does this sound so satisfying? C minor over G, F minor 6 over G, C. All right. That's the classic Picardy third, tierce picard. That's when you start in a minor key and find your way to the major triad at the very end. That was a very popular sound in the Baroque and classical era. One minor change I might make to this progression is I might take this F minor 6 chord and throw in a G7 flat 9. And the way that we do that is we just take the C of an F minor 6 and move it down to a B natural, the leading tone in the key. Listen to what happens when we go to F minor 6 to G7 flat 9 to C. Woo! I don't know, I might throw in a C sus before the C too. That's the stuff right there. Any tips on musical transitions, i.e. verse to chorus, bridge to solo, chorus to verse? A big thing here is contrast. Pick a musical element and figure out what you can do differently from section to section. So maybe the verse is in a minor key and the chorus is in its relative major. Maybe the verse melody just focuses in on one note over and over again, and maybe the chorus melody has a more dynamic intervallic range and goes higher. Maybe the verse is like fast and chaotic, and maybe a lot of the elements drop out during the chorus. Weirdly, when you focus on making things opposite from one another, it creates a more unified whole. It's very counterintuitive, but opposites are not unrelated. In fact, they're very deeply related to one another. So if you're having trouble coming up with a new section, think very clinically about it. What did you do in the first section? And just do the opposite of that. Sungazer album. That's not a question, but it's extremely important. It is extremely important, Trig. Thank you for bringing that up. My band Sungazer has our debut full-length album out on October 11th entitled Perihelion. An astronomical body's perihelion is when it's at its closest to the sun. So it's the best time to sungaze. Anyway, here's a half of a second off of every song off the album. If that doesn't get you pumped for October 11th, I don't know what will. Pre-save is in the description. Will electric bass disappear from popular music? I mean, you hear electric bass like everywhere, like Levitating, Dua Lipa. If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I can take you for a... Attention from a couple years ago, Charlie Puth. Attention, you don't want my heart. I mean, good for you. That Olivia Rodrigo song that allegedly copied Misery Business starts with a big, fat, funky bass line. Good for you, I guess you moved on really easily. I don't see electric bass going anywhere. In fact, I think it's actually becoming more and more popular in recent years as like a fundamental texture to pop music, which I think is, you know, a pretty cool thing. Electric bass is awesome. Hot take, electric bass is awesome. How do you resolve G flat minor 7, add sharp 13, flat 9? Okay, so let's talk about why this question makes absolutely no sense. You would never see this chord in the real world, never mind resolve it to anywhere, because it violates some basic syntax on how chords are constructed. In other words, this chord is cringe. First, let's talk about this G flat minor 7. It's pretty rare to see this chord written as G flat minor 7. Most people would prefer to see it written as an F sharp minor 7. F sharp and G flat in our 12-tone equal tempered system is the same note. And so F sharp minor 7 and G flat minor 7 sound exactly the same. So why would you pick one versus the other? The names of notes within chords always follow an alphabetical pattern, and chords are always built in thirds. So if we have an F sharp minor 7, we have F sharp, A, C sharp, and E, because we're stacking thirds within that alphabetical framework. If we were to think about it as a G flat minor 7, it'd be G flat, B double flat, because it has to be a third within that alphabetical pattern, D flat, and F flat, because it has to be a third within that alphabetical pattern. This chord has B double flat and F flat in it, which is just hard to wrap your brain around when you spell it. And so most people don't think about G flat minor 7, they think about F sharp minor 7. Now there are some circumstances where you would think about it as G flat minor, like for example, the 4 minor in the key of D flat, because the note G flat is up a fourth from D flat, so you'd call it the 4 minor or G flat minor. But in the vast majority of circumstances, you're not gonna find that. Now, the real issue here is the add sharp 13. Why is that an issue? 13 is another way of saying the 6th note of the major scale, displaced by an octave. In the case of G flat major, that's an E flat. When you say sharp 13, you mean a note one higher than E flat, which in this case would be E natural. But in the context of this G flat minor 7 chord, we already have an enharmonic E natural, this F flat. So adding a sharp 13 means absolutely nothing, because you're just adding another note which is already in the bass minor 7 chord. There is really no circumstance where you would ever see a sharp 13 in a chord. It makes no sense because it's just the same thing as saying the minor 7th. And finally, when we're talking about this flat 9 at the end of this monstrosity, you never really find a flat 9 on minor 7 chords, and probably for a good reason. They don't sound good. In certain circumstances, like on a dominant 7th chord, it can sound nice, but this is not a dominant 7th chord. This is a minor 7th chord. Minor 7th chords generally, they don't like that amount of tension. It doesn't work for them. And so the way that I would resolve this chord is just by getting rid of the flat 9. Anyway, not to dunk on this question so much, but when I see something like this, I see somebody playing with the surface level syntax of chords, not actually paying attention to what they sound like or what the context might be. This is not a chord somebody found out there in the real world. They were just messing around with what they think chords look like. I play some chess, and this kind of reminds me of a situation where the board is set up in a way where the pieces have been moved in places where they can't be from the starting position. Like if you just have pawns in random places, you look at it and you're like, what the hell is this? Why is this here? The patterns that you might expect from certain things really do matter, and they have context, like a chessboard might. Are Shawn Crowder and Mike Rugnetta the same person? I've never seen them in the same room together, so I'm not saying it. Also, fun fact, Mike Rugnetta plays a mean quintuplet swing. Starting at Berklee next week, any advice? I'm a guitarist if that matters. So I know school has already been in session for a month, but my big advice for you and anybody who is going to music school this fall is twofold. The first thing is you need to find your tribe. Find the people that you can rely upon, both for mental health reasons, but also for professional reasons and just social reasons. You're gonna wanna find people that you click with, that inspire you, that feed the fire, that made you want to play music in the first place. These are people that hopefully will be lifelong friends. I still play with musicians today who I first met at music school, and I really feel like that's the value of music school, to find your tribe. The second piece of advice that I would give to you is to not let the information that you are given dictate how you feel music should be made. You're gonna be learning all the chords, and you're gonna be learning all the scales, and you're gonna be learning all the chord scales, and that's very exciting. It's very intoxicating, honestly, but there is a danger of losing track of what it is that you want to do with music. Don't lose sight of what keeps you excited. And yeah, have fun. How do you like your coffee?
I take it black, like my man.
In what order should you record instruments for an online project, for a big band? You should always start with drums. Like no matter what, start with the drummer. Even if they don't like it, it will always give a better performance. You can give them a demo to play along to, and then you can layer instruments on top, usually bass after that, and then maybe keys and guitar. When you're recording remotely, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. You're always trying to react to things which haven't been recorded yet, especially with jazz big band. I mean, it's so difficult to make it feel like an organic whole when everybody is recorded separately, but that's the way that I would do it, honestly. Hi, can you make us harpists a favor and explain to your audience how harp pedals work? I actually have a bonus video over on Nebula doing exactly that. If you want to learn all about how harp works, go check it out over on Nebula. Opinion being a jazz musician in New York City versus other major cities. New York City, out of any city in the world, is where jazz is happening. It's the jazz capital of the world. There's so much jazz happening. It's amazing. It's incredibly inspiring. I love the way that musicians play here with such heart and such abandon. There's like this rawness to it that really feels so alive, and I love being a musician here. There's of course New Orleans. That is the birthplace of jazz, and that is an incredibly inspiring environment also, but for what I want to do, I mean, there really isn't any other place. I love this city. I love the music being made here. Bach or Mozart? I am a Bach boy through and through. If you are a Bach boy, leave a comment. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. It is curated specifically for learning, so there are no ads, and they are launching new premium courses all the time, so you can go wherever your creativity takes you. You can study all kinds of things. They got photography, you got design, They have like After Effects. One class that I definitely recommend if you're at all interested in starting your own YouTube channel is the one from Marquez Brownlee. YouTube Success Script, Shoot, and Edit with MKBHD is a clear and cogent introduction to the wonderful world of YouTube and what it means to make a YouTube video. So if you're interested and want that sweet free Skillshare link, the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get 1 month free of Skillshare. Thanks everybody so much for watching. Until next time.
Peace.